On the face of it, this might not sound like it's a really big deal when a company that only sells 330,000 vehicles globally in 2022 is planning to compete with BYD. So some of you will know BYD sold 1.8 million vehicles last year. This year they're aiming for 3 million, which I'm not sure they're going to get. And BYD these days, I think, has a huge amount of clout because of a few things that we will get into in a minute. There's a kind of a nice cocktail of things going on there. Thank you very much to the people that support me as well on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon or YouTube memberships. Links to these will be in the description below. And I'm trying to do this every day and make it my job because I think it's a really important thing to spread information about EVs. I think it's a really, really important thing to do. The cheapest and easiest way to help, though, is just by pressing the like button if you would like to do that. Remember to subscribe for my daily videos as well about EV news from around the world. For those of you that are new here, I am Ben Alexander and I make videos almost every single day. Lately it's been a bit rocky, but for health reasons, but now I think I'm back on my feet. So it should be every day. BYD is doing super, super well. They've hired a designer called Wolfgang Egger, and I've mentioned him in a previous video. I'll put that video below. It's a really interesting one. He's the guy that designed a bunch of the best-selling Audis that have been around for the last 5 or 10 years. Alfa Romeo 8C, if you know that, then you're a car person. He designed that car. He designed cars for BYD as well in the last few years, such as the BYD Seal, the Atto 3, and the BYD Song. The BYD Song should be coming to Australia in the next year or two. Beautiful car, all of which look great. BYD have also had great backing from various places. The most well-known is Warren Buffett from very early on before they really boomed in this last 5 years. BYD have also been making cars for years. This is something a lot of people don't really realize. They started really getting serious about their EVs only a handful of years ago. So they already have people that will rebuy newer cars from them, for example. And actually, they have got years and years of experience now with regard to manufacturing. They've got a really interesting history. So they're really well set up, I think, for making electric vehicles. It also set up originally in the early days, over 20 years ago, as a technology company, an electronics company, selling their own electronics that they designed and made themselves. And they did very well at that. They also designed and produced the fantastic Blade batteries that have, they now sell those to Toyota. And it's honestly a big mixture of things that is making them do really well these days. And it's a really good brand to buy from, genuinely. The only real negative that I've heard is that if you crash a BYD, it may take literally 2 or 3 months to get some parts from China, but it will depend on what parts, I imagine, because obviously the basic ones like a bumper and a headlight, they're going to be sat waiting probably in a warehouse or quite easy to transport. But if you need a very specific cut of metal for one of the innards of the car, like one of the crash panels or slam panels and all these little bits, you might need to wait a little bit for those. They are tremendously reliable, we now know this, and as a Toyota fanboy as well from years gone by, I'm quite surprised at just how good the BYD cars are made. They really are impressive. Hopefully they are doing well in 10 or 20 years from now. This is the big thing. Some of the older ones are still doing really well from like 2012, you know, but this new generation of EVs that are more complex with the rotating screens and stuff, I'd really like to know if any issues arise in the next 10 or 20 years. So BYD won't be stressing about Mahindra, probably not, of course, but there is a few things to think about. Mahindra is amongst a few companies that can cause the BYD bosses to maybe lose a bit of sleep, because it's sizable enough that if 2 or 3 of these companies, like Mahindra, start doing very, very well in places where BYD sell vehicles, then this starts to cause competition, which will really just dent the numbers for BYD, and the whole price war situation ordinarily begins at this point. This is yet again what is happening right now in China. It's a big war That's going on right now. Companies like Mercedes have in some places been halving their vehicles prices to get some cars simply out of the door. It's a bit weird to say that, but that's literally what's going on. Mahindra sold over 330,000 cars last year, or vehicles, and hope to sell 1 million this year, apparently. But if you look at the vehicles they do make, they're great. They drive really nicely. The warranties are great. They're very comparable with other brands like BYD. They have some of the highest rates as well for customers that repurchase from them of any brand, even Toyota and Honda. That's a big deal. And they recently released their plan to move into the EV market with 5 new vehicles that they launched or sort of announced at the same time, with at least one coming to Australia. And they're using Volkswagen parts to make them. Not entirely, but Volkswagen parts. That could be a big deal. That's a really good connection to have, I reckon. So no official numbers have been released yet about them, but apparently some numbers being leaked are that they will have batteries up to 79 kilowatt hours and starting at 60 kilowatt hours in capacity. We've recently seen just how things can change regards the cars that are available to buy to us. In the last 5 years, just a few years ago, people in the West probably didn't know that BYD even existed, but they have been selling millions of cars before this year. So you can walk into a shop now around Europe and buy one if you wanted to. And it isn't a bad thing to do. Honestly, I think that's a good thing to do. In just a few years, we've had companies like Havel, BYD, MG come to us with actually quite compelling and competitive offerings. And it has to be said that they actually are taking people's money. People are buying them. So companies like Mahindra may well be one of the next ones in this new EV landscape. Toyota and Honda need to really get into it properly, because all sorts of things are going to be happening over the next 5 years. Mark my words. What do you all think about the Mahindra vehicles? Have you driven any or seen one in real life? Had a little poke around? Have you ridden in one? What are your thoughts on them? Anything at all? I'm just really interested to know. I always really love reading comments, and I try to get back to most of them, and it's really insightful. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button for me so that YouTube knows that people are enjoying it, and please consider subscribing for more daily videos about electric vehicles.